Hey, a little bit of an uncomfortable situation. I'm stretching things out. So, um, I've had a lot of questions on cancer, especially post, uh, you injection shot, roll up your sleeve. Super problematic, and it's not like a couple people. Um, Anecdotally, I can say that now. I've had so many people reach out to me that have, no, it's not funny, it's jacked up, but the number of people where, a family member or a friend where they had, uh, cancer that was in remission for 15 years, and after the second shot or booster, within 2 months, it was stage four. It was uh, just tragic. And so, uh, a friend of mine was asking about, say with ivermectin, if you go on NIH and I just, literally, and you type in ivermectin cancer, you get all this info. Shh, don't say anything. You don't want CDC to get involved and shut that down, but it's there, and it's fascinating on how it does it. In that vein, there's albendazole and fenbendazole. I don't want to say a fan, but more of a fan of fenbendazole because there's, now, mind you, it's not like there's tons of studies, but the mechanism with which these, I think they're called mebendazoles, but the mechanism in which they're able to inhibit cancer growth. In fact, so there's something called the p53 gene, and I have to think. Dang it. Cancer, that's some stuff. Cancer cells turn off the p53 gene. That should have been really simple for me to know. Fenbendazole turns it back on. Like, it turns it back on. Like, that's literally crazy. And the other thing is, especially in like prostate cancer, where it's where there was when I say drug resistant, meaning the medications they are using to try and mitigate prostate cancer, when they used mebendazole or fenbendazole, they saw significant improvement in reduction of cancer, and it's like, that's prostate, but it was, I have a mnemonic in my head, but it was like like, well, down here, like ovarian, and so colorectal, AML, lymphomas, like glioblastoma, so osteosarcomas, melanomas, lung one, like there's a lung ductal carcinomas. I mean, it's not just one. You're talking about this myriad of things. And AML, like acute myeloid leukemia, like, whoa. And you're not going to hear about it. And I'm not saying, this is just what I've spent a little bit of time reading it, but so I'm not saying go on a website and get a 250 milligram capsules of it for $1.37 because of the other things that it could do, or Pancur crystals at 220 milligrams per gram, and it's a big thing of it. I'm not telling anyone to do it because you can't find it, and there's no difference, and I don't want to go down a diverge, but the difference between penicillin that we would take and penicillin that would be given just on a consistent basis to livestock that we eat or that people who drink milk will consume, like the difference from what goes to us to them when you've got this stimulant on all this stuff is that they shut it off and then they switch the label and then they just turn it back on. Same stuff. It's like all they do is switch who it's for. Like you have an active ingredient. Like there's no different. It's like I'm looking around for something and it's like this is for us and different label, or you just switch it so it's liquid or in a paste form. I mean, the cream is the cream, right? Like there's no difference there if you're putting on your kitty or you. It's the same freaking thing. It's just they've made it unbelievably difficult for humans to get the human kind. Now, because of the whole ivermectin thing, I never did that because it was super easy to get barrels of the human kind, but I just wanted to throw it out there. Man, post shot, post inoculation, it's yeah, so they didn't die 24 hours or 48 hours or 2 weeks later. I mean, like a bunch, like a ton, like tens and tens of thousands of people did, which didn't count, or they just, ended up dying from getting COVID and not being treated. But what we're seeing with stroke, cardiovascular events, rampant, aggressive tumor activation. It's the plan, and it's working. And just like in March and April and May and June and July and August and September and October, I got those months right, of 2020 and on, I didn't want that to happen to anyone because there were known treatments. There's still things that we can do to at least help mitigate some of the bad that they're inflicting on us. And by golly, if you are suffering from any, so I do, this is the, I just want to say this is the problem. I didn't intend this, but so when I went into Costco, and because they had called the police on me a couple times, and I thought my initial responses to upper management were fairly like whimsical. I mean, but they, made me leave, and I needed to pick up a few pair of glasses, and so for freak's sakes, I'm not going to wear a mask. Traditional. So I went out to my car and I had my unicorn. So I put this on and I walked in and I'm standing in line. And, I got some interesting looks, and I get up to the counter and they've got my frames, And she's like, well, would you like to try them on? I'm like, sure. And, I take this off, and she jumps back, of course, in horror. And she's like, sir. She didn't ask my pronouns, so super offended. I let it go because I'm a gentleman. That was insensitive too. Anyway, so she grabs a mask and hands it to me, and I jump back. I'm like, that's gross. Like, where the hell have your hands been? And probably she's just been rubbing I don't have any. I've got these where I put secrets go in these. So I jump back because of her all too clean hands, which means they're not. And so she goes, well, we can't have you, fit your glasses on without the mask. So I was like, okay, fine. So I'm not going to, whore myself out to Costco. So I went like this, and I would go like this. And I'd put the glasses on, and I'd be like, I think they're a little crooked. And I had her adjust them. So she, adjusted, and I put them back on until they were like, I was like, oh, that's perfect, thanks. And so I did that with 3 pair. Here's the problem. Although similar, like not dissimilar, but not similar enough. So now so now I'm all cattywampus trying to figure out just freaking Costco. And I get stressed, and I need some tissue work, deep tissue work. Cancer. This was supposed to be 3 minutes. But then if you do a further deep dive, I mussed it up into things like thymoquinone. So look at, like, anybody Google, there's a Pakistani study from 2014 on thymoquinone. It's the main, I don't want to say ingredient, compound of Nigella sativa. Wow. Like, you want to look at some serious data on interleukin 1 beta and TNF alpha and IL-6. Like, that's when we're just talking about, like, inflammatory, or like mitigating inflammatory pathways. But you start to look at what it's able to do for tumor suppression, just brilliant. And then you combine that with HBOT, with doing some oxygen. What the hell's that called when you go into an oxygen tank? Hyperbaric. Yeah, hyperbaric oxygen. So HBOT, all right, super good data on that. I'm not telling people to do it, just saying duck go it and see what you find out. But again, I was going to do a whole thing on lumbrokinase. I mean, nattokinase, but lumbrokinase it's a whole different ballgame in its the fibrolytic activity, its ability to recognize clotting activity, and I'm not talking about just preventing clots. If you actually have blood clots, it's able to break that down. And once the chemical messaging is regulated. It's not. I'm trying. Shelley tells me don't say pathways, but it recognizes that it no longer needs to be exerting its enzymatic or proteolytic activity, and it stops without having any other impact on bleeding. So you look at all of these things where you have to be super careful, right? You got to be careful if you're taking like Coumadin, warfarin, you don't, well, like, don't, I'm not saying like pour it out and like snort it or anything, but just the miracle of nature. And it truly is. I mean, to the degree that like studies show that it's better than like TPA because it doesn't have the side effects. I mean, that side effect profile, and we've seen over the last couple of years the side effect profile of what our hospitals are, paid to use, refuse to not use. If you say please don't use it, they try and find a way to trick you into doing it, sedate you, get you so sick that you finally give in. So we know that happens to about 1 million people. But nature is awesome. Jaime, I don't know how you're going to edit this. I apologize. I have to go get Parker. All right, so for people that are concerned about cancer, this is just one small component, but just check out fenbendazole. Again, albendazole is another option, but neither of them have been heavily studied. Albendazole over time, if you're using it for greater than 2 weeks, or you're doing pulse dosing, you do have to be a little bit more careful with fenbendazole. There's pretty much a zero side effect profile, which, similar to the Voldemort of medications, ivermectin, pretty much a zero side effect profile. And if you look at how they found it in the soil bacteria, God gives us what we need. We need to use this. Well, we need to use this to connect with them, and then use our brain to then we have to be calm enough and, what I would say, obedient enough to listen to when the Holy Spirit speaks to us, and then have just unwavering faith in that combination of our intellectual knowledge, what God gives us, and how the Holy Spirit directs us to truth and information. And if what you're being told is different, just listen to it. Be curious. Engage in a fun intellectual debate about it, but don't comply to anything that is not in line with truth. It always ends bad. I'm supposed to end it on a high note. Unicorns make glasses crooked. They don't make glass. They don't exist, but decisions make glasses crooked, not unicorns. So that's the take-home message. Unicorns don't make glasses crooked. I do. For me. Don't blame me if your glasses are crooked. Just